Hi, I am Viktor Ketipov. I have been in the industry for more than 10 years. I'm currently CEO of Keep Interactive, and I want to make a disclaimer that we're currently working on CryoWar, which is a real-time multiplayer arena brawler that uses NFTs in the game. And why this is important, we're going to find out in a minute. But before I start, I want to get a feel of the audience. So, who of you have heard about cryptocurrencies other than the most popular ones, Bitcoin and Ethereum? So, who of you among the audience have heard about, let's say, Solana? Dogecoin. What about Dogecoin? Okay, so you do have an idea about all the different cryptocurrencies that you can see right now on different exchanges. Okay, I'm going to go briefly through what blockchain is, because it's important to know what blockchain is in order to understand NFTs. So blockchain, the definition is a digital ledger of transactions that is duplicated and distributed to a huge network of computers. So it's called blockchain because similar to databases, it stores information, but unlike databases, data is structured in blocks that have a timestamp, meaning that you know when information has been stored, and also are linked and secured by cryptography. I'm not going to get into more details about that because it's very technical, but it's important to know that. So blockchain is immutable, meaning that changes cannot be made. Only new blocks can be added. So if something is recorded in the blockchain, it stays there forever. It's secure. It's anonymous, meaning that participants in blockchain usually are wallets. They're not connected to a specific ID. And they're unanimous in most cases, meaning that in order for some information to be added to the blockchain, there has to be unanimous decision. And this is part of the security of it. So a very important thing to know about blockchains is because of the way it's structured, it's slower than a traditional database, and it's more expensive than a traditional database. This means that it's not something that can just replace databases that we've used before in games. One important aspect of blockchain is that it's programmable and you can write smart contracts on it. The majority of blockchains are open, meaning that anyone can participate in it. Anyone can read what has happened and what is recorded on the blockchain. And this is really important for smart contracts because it makes certain programs open source. Smart contracts are interesting because they run on predefined conditions, and you know what these conditions are. They are written in the blockchain and anyone can see them. Of course, they require technical knowledge to look through them, but they execute without the command of anyone. It's very important to know that even though they have contract in them, they're not legally binding in any way. An example for a smart contract is, let's say, me or a wallet that I have has a smart contract with a wallet that is controlled, for example, by my colleague Ivan. And I can write a smart contract that on predefined condition, let's say every day, I give Ivan, let's say 10 tokens of a certain currency. That it's no way legally binding. And if some of the conditions are not met, for example, I don't have that many tokens in my wallet, then that just can't happen. Now, let's talk about NFTs. NFTs are stored on the blockchain, and NFT stands for non-fungible tokens, meaning that they're unique and they cannot be replaced in any way. As a contrast, Fungible tokens are tokens that are replaceable. If I have, let's say, 2 Satoshis in one hand and 2 Satoshis in other hand, and these hands could represent, for example, wallets. If I change them, then they're going to be exactly the same. So the value of them and all the information about them is exactly the same. Whereas this cannot happen in NFTs. You can create several NFTs that even can have the exact same metadata, and they can look like they're the same, but NFTs, they have a unique identity, they have unique ID, and you can always tell them apart. They're standardized, so we know how to create them, and every NFT has to follow these standards. They're stored on the blockchain, and they have metadata about them that often points out outside the blockchain. This is really, really important. On the right side, you can see 2 of the most valuable NFTs, and by valuable, I mean that are sold for the most amount of cryptocurrency, Bored Apes and CryptoPunks. And it's important to know even they don't use the blockchain for storing the information about the picture. So the most popular NFTs right now, NFTs that contain some kind of art. Whether that is a good art or a bad art, it's up for debate. But this is the most popular variety of NFTs. So for example, in a Bored Ape, you have metadata that describes that NFT. They have a unique ID, meaning that each and every one is unique and it can be checked, and metadata that usually describes certain characteristics of that particular ape, whether it has a hat, laser eyes, whether the background is in a certain color, and so on. It's important to know that storing data in blockchain is expensive. And that's the primary reason why NFTs like Bored Apes are stored outside of the blockchain. A good question you have to ask yourself is, what happens to that information? Who has control over the storage? So, for example, a lot of art NFTs are stored in another distributed network called IPFS. But some of the NFTs are stored in like traditional storages like AWS. And whether at some point this NFT is going to point to an actual image or not, you don't have any guarantee for it. Also, as of this moment, NFTs give you just the ownership of that particular NFT. Meaning that you don't legally own the art of it. So it's a certificate of ownership. You can transfer it because it's on the blockchain, so you can transfer it to anyone you want. It's programmable, which is one of the qualities that it's being praised for. Because if you make an NFT and you can attach a smart contract to it, which every time it's resold, the original creator can have a revenue share of that. Now, let's get into the interesting part. So, what about NFT in games? You can think of NFT in games as a protocol for transferring data in and out of the game. And usually they're most useful for ownership of certain items. NFTs technology is really young, so there are different theories how this is going to play out. I have, and I want to stress out, this is my opinion, NFTs are not suited for every game. So you need to have a game where certain items are really valuable and people would want to move them around either outside of their game or try to sell them. So, for example, a narrative-based single-player game might not be a good fit for it. So, like every new technology, NFTs will find or probably we'll see about that, their way into games, but they're not going to fit everywhere. Now, what about the past? And as a new technology, this means last year. NFT ownership as a core mechanic. So CryptoKitties was really, and still is, an interesting project where entirely on the blockchain you breed kitties. They have different properties like color and different properties visually. And the game itself is kind of a sandbox game. It doesn't have a win and lose condition, and people find what they find it, how they find it interesting. So, for example, for some people, it's about trying to breed the cat that they already have, or try to breed a specific type of cat. For some people, it's about collecting as many cats as possible, and for some people, it's about breeding a lot of cats and selling them on the market. Another, and probably the biggest one in the crypto space, Axie Infinity, which have similar mechanics where Axie Infinity is a game inspired by Pokemon where you breed different types of Axies and you fight with them. The NFTs there are the actual Axies. So you do have game mechanics in there. So you do breed Axies in order to fight with them, to breed new Axies, to become a champion, or to sell them and earn money from this. One of the interesting things about Axie Infinity is that some people in the world starting doing that entirely for the money, and that's how the play to earn started out. So at some point, it was more profitable for some people to play Axie and sell Axies on the market than doing a regular job. Now, with the collapse of the cryptocurrency market, that has become unprofitable, and right now it's on the decline. The Sandbox is an interesting game because it's a sandbox game, voxel type of game where you have different experiences. It's kind of a metaverse, the most overused word in the last year. A game where you have different experiences. You can create experiences, and NFTs there are actual plots of lands or different items in these lands. And what players can do is they can get a land, they can create something in that land, like a specific experience. And because it's on the blockchain, then later on can, for example, charge someone for that experience, similar to what you see in Roblox. But then also they can sell the whole experience to someone else. Now, what about the present? So right now, the trend in crypto and NFT games is NFT ownership as additional game mechanic. So you have a game with, let's say, AAA quality like Off the Grid, which is a battle royale type of a game, where NFTs are additional items, usually visuals, that are can be embedded into the game, but it works with the whole game, meaning that the NFT is not needed in order to play the game. So it's a kind of a mix between free-to-play and NFTs. Because the previous games that I've mentioned usually require you to buy an NFT, and that could be expensive. Another example is Ni no Kuni Cross Worlds, which actually still don't have NFTs, but it's like they said that Q4 this year they're going to add them. They have play to earn mechanics to earn one of their cryptocurrencies in the game and buy certain elements with it. And the third one is the game that we're working on, called Cryo War, which is a real-time multiplayer arena brawler, really competitive game where you can't buy any sort of power-up or stuff like this. So everything you can buy is actually visuals. And buying visuals is something that you can have as NFTs, because no matter how valuable or invaluable people think that the NFTs are, NFTs don't, in that way, NFTs don't break the game. So no matter what kind of NFTs are, if they don't interfere with the gameplay, you can have them with or without them. And what about the future? Well, if someone tells you right now that they know what the future of NFT games are, they're lying. Nobody knows. So players will decide. There are two really opposing sides right now for people thinking that NFT games are absolutely the future and there's no way that we'll live in the future without NFTs, and people saying that they are cancer and they should be abolished. And we'll see how this will turn out. What I see in the future is bigger on-chain games. On-chain games are games that usually don't have any or have very small visual representation and live on the blockchain primarily. The good thing about this is that they have inherited history because everything that happens on the blockchain is stored and you can see what happens in the future. So a narrative type of game would be really interesting in that scenario because you have all the history and everything that's led up to this situation. Protocols for transferable NFTs. Right now, you can take an NFT from one game because it's on the blockchain, and another game, because it's a protocol, can see that you own that particular game. But we don't have a protocol of how to use them. And it's up to game A and game B to work together to figure out how these two NFTs are going to work together. What I see in the future is protocols created for huge worlds that would work with common NFTs or a way to transfer NFTs from one game to another. And no tradable NFTs. And this would be really great for example, achievements. Because currently, if you give a player an NFT for an achievement, they can sell it. So it kind of, it's not that useful. But non-transferable NFTs will be really great for people to earn something and make sure that everyone can see it. So if you earn a non-transferable NFT on your PlayStation game, then it can be used on your PC as well. So you can have like a huge network and see all of your achievements in all of your games. Now, what are the challenges and opportunities? When the first one is probably the biggest one, it's the user experience. As Alex said before, this is really important for any game. And right now, the user experience of actually creating a wallet and buying an NFT or actually using NFT is terrible. You have to go to a third-party site. You have to make sure that you write down 10 to 12 words and keep them really, really safe. And this has to change in order to bring mass adoption on NFTs. The other thing is bots. Since we started working and having multiplayer games, bots have been a big problem. But with NFTs, they become even bigger problem because right now scammers have additional incentive, additional monetary incentive to farm these type of games and earn from this. And games can suffer from that. So this is even bigger problem than in traditional games. Copycats and scams. So NFTs give you a unique ID that represents your ownership of a specific item. But someone can copy the metadata of your NFTs and try to sell them on another market. And since in blockchain, there's no one authority that says this is the real deal, copycats are easy to do scams. What about the opportunities? So, like I said, metaverse is something that we've been talking about not only over the past years, but in the game industry for decades. There's really interesting opportunity with NFTs because NFTs can become transferable, but we'll need to have a lot of protocols in place, and we're nowhere near that as of this moment. NFTs offer the possibility for ownership of items. So like in the sandbox game, you can create an experience. For example, think of Super Mario Maker. You can create a really exciting level in the Super Mario Maker, and it's absolutely guaranteed that you own that. Of course, the creator of Super Mario Maker can decide whether or not to give you any royalties about this, but it's absolutely guaranteed that you have created this particular level. And this is interesting because this can give revenue to creators. So this can make it really easy for games that give you opportunity to create content to share that revenue with you. And this also would create an interesting secondary market, because if you have, let's say, an MMO, and you have, let's say, all the swords and all the items in the MMO as NFTs, this means that player will start trading them, especially items that they haven't used. So this will create a secondary market. And with smart contracts, this could work out really well, because the creator of the NFT can earn royalties over that. Of course, this is an economic challenge, because a lot of games rely on fear of missing out and rely on players having to grind through the whole game in order to get the item that they want. So it's a challenge. So yeah, it's questions time. Viktor.
Check it.
Hello, Adash.
Hello.
Help me understand. Right now, content creators can certainly sell their items and get revenue from it. For example, Steam Workshop and Dota 2 skins that people make, and they get a small part of the revenue. How would that differ with NFT? What would be different? I mean, I struggle to understand.
One of the things that it differentiates from that is, first of all, the guarantee that this is going to happen, because at any point right now, Steam can say, okay, we push it down this thing and it's no longer available. Whereas if something is on the blockchain, it's there, so it's immutable.
Okay.
Steam can decide whether or not to use it in the future, which is a problem. So we don't know what we do in that scenario. But in addition to that, in Steam you don't have smart contracts attached to it, meaning that the initial creator will not get revenue if someone buys a specific item that they've created and then resells it for twice the value.
Mm-hmm. How can this be arbitrated? I mean, if Steam decides to, or Valve or whatever, decides to take down something connected to NFTs, who is there to actually enforce this not happening? I mean, what does it mean for me to have an NFT, to have a guarantee that I own this and it will not be, I don't know, taken down or somehow replaced? And what does it mean for the developer? I can't picture
NFTs guarantee you proof of ownership. Mm. But as of this moment, you don't have a guarantee that, for example, if that NFT leads to, let's say, a game on Steam, that it's not going to be taken down. Mm-hmm. So you don't have that as a guarantee as of this moment.
Do you see it happening, or what's your thought on it?
It's possible, but the only way to do that is if you have all the in-game assets on a distributed network.
Yeah. Yes.
And that in that way, no single entity can say, okay, no, now you don't have access to this.
Thank you.
I have many questions, but I only ask like one or two. So riffing off on what Viktor asked you, say that, okay, there's a game, there's NFTs in it, and NFTs guarantee me ownership. What if the game shuts down? I mean, I'll still have the item that lives on the blockchain, but wouldn't its value just completely evaporate because now there's nowhere to actually apply and show it off besides on the blockchain?
The value of an item is described of economically of how much someone will pay for it. That's why when a game shuts down, and if that item represents something in the game, there's no way you can get access to that item in the game again. For games that are entirely on the blockchain, what people can do is say, okay, we're making a new game and we'll make whole of the people that already have these items. For a game that it's not entirely on the blockchain, the way for you to have any kind of additional value for this is when we have a protocol for actually transferring your items to something else, to another game.
Okay, so this leads to my second question, and this will be my last one. Isn't the concept of enforcing protocols in order to have transferable items between different games, so mimicking like a metaverse, imply that there should be a centralized authoritative institution to actually regulate this, because it's a protocol? Someone needs to build the protocol, maintain the protocol, and update the protocol, and they get to set the limitations of what the protocol does.
Well, not really. For example, the web hasn't been created just by one organization. So what I do envision is different companies in the space will work together to create a protocol, and everyone will decide whether to use that protocol. And probably we'll go through several different protocols until we get to something that works for everyone. But it's a really good question, because we need to find a way so that if you get an item in certain game and that game collapses, you can use that somewhere else. Yeah, could be more valuable in another game. Thank you.
So my question is, maybe you can speak for your experience on CryoWar, but if you want to make a game, when is the right time to decide whether you want to include NFTs or not? And yeah, I guess that's the question. And why actually is the other part of the question.
Well, the quick and easy answer is, at any time. For example, CryoWar at first was created as a free-to-play game, and then NFTs added on the side. If you make an entirely blockchain-based on-chain game with NFTs, then you have to decide it at the beginning. So in the design of any game, it's best to know what you want to build from the beginning, so you know how to incorporate it. Because we've seen a lot of games try to push NFTs in places that it doesn't belong over the last year, and it resulted in backlash. So definitely the best time to decide whether you want to create a game with NFTs and actually have NFTs in the game is in pre-production, and to know why you want to have these NFTs in there.
About the copycat concern that you mentioned, just so I know I understand correctly. So basically, when you say someone can copy the metadata, you're actually saying that, for example, if you have a skin in a FPS game, you have ownership, you have a unique skin in the game, someone can take that, basically copy that skin, make the same visual assets, and basically sell them as the real thing, but using its own unique ID on the blockchain, basically.
I think I can answer this in two parts. First of all, when you store information on the blockchain, you usually don't store the model and the textures itself, because that's a lot of data, and it's really expensive. If you want to have a game with, let's say, thousands of different models, you don't want to store that information. The metadata information, for example, is if you have like 5 types of swords, which one of those type of swords is it? What about its rarity? What about a certain category of it? So the metadata usually is a small piece of information that describes the item, but doesn't include information like how does it look? Because this is a really a lot of information, and you don't want to do that, and it's really expensive at this moment. How do you protect yourself from copycats? Is that the NFTs that you create, each and every one of them has a unique ID. So they may copy the metadata, and the people who they can fool are the actual players. And that's why we have a user experience issue there with blockchain and owning of NFTs, because there are different marketplaces, because there isn't one centralized marketplace. So you can buy an NFT that has similar metadata than the items that you have in your game, and people can be fooled. If you design if you code your game right, you absolutely know which NFTs you've created and which NFTs you recognize in your game. So the problem is for the users.
Like buying Abitas instead of Abitas.
Yeah, exactly. But it's even yeah, but it says Adidas. Yes, absolutely. It's like buying a cheap knockoff of somewhere, and at first glance, it looks exactly the same, but they're not. I mean, there's a way to identify them. If that wasn't the case, then I mean, this tech just wouldn't work. Okay. Any more questions?
I don't think so.
Okay, let's all thank Viktor Ketipov for the lecture.
Thank you.